We
I'm
are
still
taking
really
calls.
curious.
Phone number is 202-998-5218. I do want to hear what you guys have to say.
You're
Shut the
willing.
fuck up. Please call in. I
Logic can
wasn't
actually be
talking with you,
against you.
Jesse. Let's have a conversation. This is not a platform for you to say whatever you want.
Hello, and welcome to the new series, Fembro Wanna Hear a Joke, where I will utilize First Amender statements as a vehicle to contend with the liberal mind virus as a whole. This is part of my grander initiative to try and verbal battle the left more than counter-signal my own side. The only reason this seems to have been a thing is because of two reasons. One, how my side represents itself is very important to me. I would like to make sure a reputable hand is at the wheel. And two, I cannot overstate how much I abhor listening to liberals. So I typically only hear them through the filter of a fellow conservative. No, not because of my echo chamber, because I was forged in a crucible of liberal nonsense, and I have had my fill. Today, we will discuss Anitian, the scamedian. Why dig up 2016 culture war? Because we need to remember how we got here.
There is a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Yeah. Weird.
My opinion, I'm actually, I don't dislike Anita Sarkeesian. I hated her when she was, really popular. I really just genuinely despised her. I was on 4chan. I was very much against her. But as time has gone on, I've, realized, okay, well, some of the positions she holds actually there's some credence to it. It's not a vapid response. And I think the vitriolic response that she received in spades is likely undeserved, in my opinion.
Okay, by now we have all heard the trope that women in media being portrayed as the protagonist's motivation is bad. And that's what Anita is basically going to be talking about in the form of the damsel in distress. So she starts by listing the examples, then makes moral judgments. I will add my rebuttals as we go and finish out with my full argument about how part of why our society isn't reproducing at replacement rates, and why the male loneliness epidemic and the sad girl boss failure can 75% about be traced back to removing the damsel in distress trope from our society. Because after all, what that really said about us as a society is we value men who protect vulnerable women. So as she gets into the history of the damsel in distress trope, instead of viewing it through the feminist lens, view it through an historic lens and ask why this story has been with us so long, how it's served society, and what have we lost without it.
The term damsel in distress is a translation of the French demoiselle en détresse. Demoiselle simply means young lady, while détresse means roughly anxiety or despair caused by a sense of abandonment, helplessness, or danger. As a trope, the damsel in distress is a plot device in which a female character is placed in a perilous situation from which she cannot escape on her own and must be rescued by a male character, usually providing the core incentive or motivation for the protagonist's quest. In video games, this is most often accomplished via kidnapping, but it can also take the form of petrification or demon possession, for example. Traditionally, the woman in distress is a family member or a love interest of the hero. Princesses, wives, girlfriends, and sisters are all commonly used to fill the role. Of course, the damsel in distress predates the invention of video games by several thousand years. The trope can be traced back to ancient Greek mythology with the tale of Perseus.
Almost as if these stories have been with us for a reason. Maybe they are important. Consider what Jordan Peterson said about these kinds of stories.
Pinocchio is a deep, deep story. It has echoes that go back 3,000 or 4,000 years to the earliest stories that we know. And it's so rich with information that a child can watch it over and over and over and over. I think my son watched Pinocchio 30 times. Why? Well, it's either because a child can't tell the difference between fantasy and reality, or it's because there's something to those stories that's much more potent than we actually consciously understand.
Stories that are handed down for time immemorial are how our ancestors keep a hand in raising us.
According to the myth, Andromeda is about to be devoured by a sea monster after being chained naked to a rock as human sacrifice. Perseus slays the beast, rescues the princess, and then claims her as his wife. In the Middle Ages, the damsel in distress was a common feature in many medieval songs, legends, and fairy tales. The saving of a defenseless woman was often portrayed as the raison d'être, or reason for existence, in romance tales and poems of the era, involving a knight-errant, the wandering knight adventuring to prove his chivalry, prowess, and virtue. At the turn of the 20th century, victimized young women became the cliché of choice for the nascent American film industry, as it provided an easy and sensational plot device for the silver screen. A famous early example is the 1913 Keystone Cops short Barney Oldfield's Race for a Life, which features the now iconic scene of a woman being tied to the railroad tracks by an evil mustache-twirling villain. Around the same time, the motif of a giant monkey carrying away a screaming woman began to gain widespread popularity in media of all kinds. Notably, Tarzan's love interest, Jane, is captured by a brutish primate in Edgar Rice Burroughs' 1912 pulp adventure, Tarzan and the Apes. In 1930, Walt Disney used this meme in an early Mickey Mouse cartoon called The Gorilla Mystery. The imagery was even exploited by the U.S. military in this recruitment poster for World War I.
What happens to a society if all the men shrugged off all responsibility of women and said, nah, you go ahead and see how you survive? And that's how we bring back a real oppressive patriarchy. Just watch. If you are going to no longer appeal to men's needs and you are going to bristle against them, under what moral structure have you done this? One you made up, and one they do not need to abide by, leading them to devolve back into the moral structures we came from, the distorted pagan roots of our godless past. Thanks, Anitian.
But it was in 1933 that two things happened, which 50 years later would set the stage for the damsel in distress trope to become a foundational element in video games as a medium. First, Paramount Pictures introduced their animated series Popeye the Sailor to cinema audiences. The formula for most shorts would involve Popeye rescuing a kidnapped olive oil. Second, in March of that year, RKO Pictures releases its groundbreaking hit film King Kong, in which a giant ape abducts a young woman and is eventually killed while trying to keep possession of her. Fast forward to 1981, when a Japanese company named Nintendo entrusted a young designer named Shigeru Miyamoto with the task of creating a new arcade game for the American market. Originally, the project was conceived of as a game starring Popeye the Sailor. But when Nintendo wasn't able to secure the rights, Miyamoto created his own characters to fill the void, heavily influenced by the movie King Kong. The game's hero Jumpman was tasked with rescuing a damsel named the Lady after she's carried off by a giant ape. In later versions, she's renamed Pauline. Although Donkey Kong is perhaps the most famous early arcade game to feature the damsel in distress, it wasn't the first time Miyamoto employed the trope.
Women do in fact need men to keep them safe, to which the feminists shriek, from other men, to which I say, fucking duh.
Unanimously, you are the weakest link. Goodbye.
And now we are both staring at each other, so I will further explain why you are a dum-dum. Women need to appeal to the good, non-violent men to use violence to protect them from the violent, bad men. Then the real crazy feminists, the femme fatales in the back, hiss, that's why we must kill all the men. To which I say, good Lord, someone throw some garlic on these witches. It is in fact wrong to kill good men in order to kill the bad men. And you would also need the good men to do it. Do you see how dumb this is? So shushy crazies in the back to the point. Women must appeal to the good-hearted men to keep them safe. Because of the efforts of this band of feminist witches, we now are seeing the first harvest of what happens to the societies whose men do not regard the save the damsel in distress trope. I call forward Andrew Tate, Nick Fuentes, and a whole band of other young men who would rather throw money at a woman on the screen for her to sell her soul for some shekels. And then for his socializing, he goes to message boards to cohort with some extremist movement, whether it be far-right fascism or far-left communism. And then you see why letting foreigners of different lands and different religions engage in influencing our youngins is deadly for our nation. This is perfect and total destruction, or at least it has the potential of. A man with a reason to live has a reason to fight for that life and be real careful and smart about how to go about it. But a man with nothing to lose will die for petty, ill-reasoned things. Those men could have been pursuing some female to woo and learned to be complete gentlemen in their pursuits in doing so. And the females could have seen how much more sacred a life would be to be a cistern for one man who would die for her and their children than to whore out for some nickels for men who demean her and who replace her at the price of another click. And may even be the threat scenario always looming over the unprotected females. So, thanks, Anita, the scamedian. Scamedia.
Hey kid, why don't you watch this next video? And it would be real cool if you click the follow button. Do it.